everybody, this is the baby butternut bowl version 2.0. I had some issues with version 1.0, which if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll tell you guys about that. Also at the end of the video, I have an update on the big green monster and where we are with that. Last October, I started working on roughing out some of the butternut that I have. I was able to get 6 bowl blanks roughed out and put in the kiln to dry. I've turned several of them already. This is, I think, the 5th of the 6 that I have. I'm using that little pivot cut here that I learned from watching one of Brian Havens' videos. He used it to rough out blanks that didn't have a real spectacular job done when they were chainsawed, so like maybe they're big ragged edges and it's not round, the corners weren't knocked off, whatever. It feels very safe and controlled, but it lets you get a reasonable bite of material out of the way, and it gets you to a point where you get round faster and then you can do a proper push cut. At least that's how it feels to me. I use it quite frequently when I'm roughing out blanks. I left the overhead camera view a little wider so you guys can see the speed readout on the lathe. One of the things that I have always been unsure of, and I still am a little bit, is how fast, to turn, how fast is safe. There are calculations that are done based on physics and the diameter of the piece that you're working on and the miles per hour that it's spinning and all of that. What tends to stick in my head is a video that I watched of Stuart Batty doing, I think, a demonstration at a wood club, basically saying that if you're turning a bowl and it's under 1,000 RPMs, that it's not going to go flying across the room. If it comes off the lathe, it's going to basically fall to the floor. I think that a lot of times turning speed is a matter of personal preference to a degree. I think a lot of people tend to turn really fast, and I think that I probably tend to turn a little slow. So I'm definitely not saying that the speed that I'm turning at is correct. It's what feels comfortable to me for whatever I'm doing. So don't look at what I'm doing and think that it's right, because it very well may not be. But I know that when I first started watching turning videos, that the speed was one of the things that I really was confused about. People would say, get the speed up as much as you can. Well, what does that mean, So right or wrong, at least you guys can see what speed I'm turning at depending upon what stage the blank is in. When you're roughing out a bowl blank to dry and then finish turn it, the general rule of thumb is to leave the walls a consistent thickness that's approximately 10% of the overall diameter of the piece. So you saw me measure the diameter and then mark approximately 10%, and that's where I'm shooting for. I got it pretty even, and off into the kiln it went. When I rough turned the 6 bowls that I did last October, I used my Supernova 2 chuck, which is a direct thread onto this Laguna lathe, and I had the 100mm jaws on it. I did that on purpose in case the tenon warped so much that it no longer fit into those jaws. I figured if something went sideways, I could always take the tenon down to fit in the 50mm jaws, which is what I have them in right now. I kept the G3 chuck that fit on my Delta MIDI lathe, and I bought the Nova spindle adapter so that I could use it on the new Laguna. And I did that because I don't really like changing the jaws a whole lot. It seems like they're really finicky, and once I get them set and tightened down onto the slides where it's pretty consistently gripping evenly, I don't really want to mess with them. However, I think that I'm having a little bit of run out issue with the spindle adapter and this G3 chuck, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of experimentation, maybe put the dial indicator on it and see what I get. I have enough trouble getting the surface finish the way I want it without the chuck going all wobbly on me. I've had a bunch of requests for videos on some of the things in the shop that I'm doing, so I'm probably going to do a Workshop Wednesday video here soon with some of that stuff incorporated. I also have been thinking about occasionally doing videos that are not quite so sped up. Pretty much everything that I do is, the video is sped up at 600%. That basically allows me to get through, the entire project without the video being an hour long. But I was thinking that it might be nice to have the option to watch some of this more in real time so you can see how the lathe is acting and what the wood is doing, and, listen to how it sounds when you're roughing out something that's really unbalanced. So if that's something that you guys are interested in me doing, let me know in the comments. And if you're not interested in it, let me know that too. That's also helpful. So back to the task at hand. I had a branch hole that went all the way through this bowl, so I put some 5-minute epoxy in it and let it sit for a week or so, and here we are. So we're going to finish turn it again. And oh my gosh, you guys, wait for it. Look at that. I didn't get a catch. Yay! Thank you guys for all of the suggestions regarding my surface finish issues that I've been having lately. Some of those things will be addressed in the tool work. Some of it will be addressed in the sanding. A couple of you had recommended that I got rid of the soft, squishy, cushy pad that I was using on the sanding mandrel for the coarser grits, to just use the more firm backing pad for the coarse grits and save the cushy one for when you're up in the higher grits. And that made a huge difference. I was able to get this really nice and smooth with the 80 grit paper on the drill, and then I went back with just a little bit of hand sanding with the lathe running with some 80 grit, and it turned out really nice. I sanded it up through 320, and then I wiped the surface off with denatured alcohol to get the dusty bits off. I just put a coat of 1 pound cut shellac on, and I'm cutting it back with 400 grit sandpaper because for whatever reason this one left kind of a lot of niblets, so I denibbed it with the sandpaper before I started putting on the finishing stuff, and I'm going to use the Axe products on this one. I finished the Axe abrasive paste, and now I am applying the polishing paste. I've been promising you guys an update on the big green monster bowl, so if you're interested in seeing where we are with that, stick around to the end of this video. I have quite a bit of bonus content there. I normally use a piece of shelf liner to cushion the bowl when I'm using a jam chuck and also to provide a little bit of grip. But the last couple of times that I've done it like that, I guess the heat generated from the friction of the jam chuck is kind of melting the wax finish and leaves it kind of gooey. So this time I just folded up a microfiber cloth and squished it between the tailstock and my little jam chuck. I'm not sure what I'm going to do going forward, if I'm going to invest in a set of coal jaws or Longworth chuck, or if I'm just going to keep doing a jam chuck. This was supposed to be the project today. The big green monster and the little baby butternut. However, I was almost done with it, sanding, and the disc caught in there and kaput. So apparently I'm getting them a little too thin still. Anyway, there's that one. So I finished this one instead, which came out of that batch that I roughed out in October, put in the kiln. I had to fill, there was a branch hole that went all the way through there, so I filled that with some 5-minute epoxy. I still have a little dimple in the bottom of my bowl, but I've been roughing out a whole bunch of really wet birch, as you can see by part of my pile down there. And I kind of figured out something about going across the bottom, so it's much, much better. Like I said, there's a little bit of a depression, but it's definitely better than I have been doing, and I kind of feel like I know how to do it now. You know, practice is going to be in order because I'm still not doing it quite right, but I think I feel how it's supposed to go now, so that's helpful. So anyway, this is the not quite baby butternut bowl. So this is this one's little brother, and this one's little brother. So, yay. Now, big green monster. We still got to figure out what's in the bottom here. Could be a squatch. I think it looks a little bit like Frozone from The Incredibles. And it doesn't really matter which way it goes. There's some sort of a masked figure in the bottom here. Anyway, so today is Thursday. I turned this a week ago Monday, so it's been, I don't know, what is that, 10 days? It's gone oval. It's when I got done rough turning it, it was about 13, give or take a little bit probably. So we're at 13 1/4 by 12 3/4. So that's how far oval it's gone. I don't have any cracks. It actually looks really good. I did put it back on the lathe because I still have the mortise on here and just tried to sand it a little bit because I didn't do a great job sanding it, partially because it was wet. and partially because I was in a hurry. And I did get some of the heartwood kind of bleeding onto the sapwood, and I heard somebody talk about that. I'm not sure if it's from the finish or what, which, you know, it doesn't bother me. I'm not terribly worried about it, but it is good to know that that happens. So I have a good solid bottom here. So I think it's about done moving. I've measured it 3 or 4 times since I turned it, and it's been the same dimensions. So I think it's about done, and it's actually not terrible as far as wobbly goes. So, well, it is this way, of course, but I have enough left here that I'll just sand this bottom flat so that it'll sit flat, and that'll be it. So there's my little stack of bowls for today, and my Bob Ross. We're gonna do we're not actually we're not running because I'm too old to run anymore, but we're gonna happy walk for the trees and make a happy little 5K. Y'all be safe out there, and don't be a litter bug. The other Bear Girls and I have been spending some time in the national forest around our house picking up garbage because people are jerks. Don't be a jerk.